It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. All I ask is that you think. What's up, everybody? It's your boy Montoya Smith, aka Black Socrates. We are doing a mental dialogue pop-up show. Waiting for the Queen Jediah to get in here. She coming up in this thing right now. Let me go ahead and get her on the broadcast. Hey, what's going on, Queen?
What's up?
Hey, glad to have you in this thing.
Baby, your sister, honey. I was speeding down the highway, so you posted up. I was rolling.
I can dig it. Picture me rolling. Picture me rolling, for sure.
Word. Hold on, I'm going to grab my charger real quick.
Okay, no problem. Well, for everybody, we just doing a mental dialogue pop-up show with my new queen of intellect. For those who are regular listeners to the mental dialogue talk show we do on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday morning. And yesterday's show was entitled I'm sorry, let me get her back on here. Hold on one second. I didn't slip my mind. Hold on one second.
What has your father taught you about what it means to become from a boy to a man?
Exactly. It slipped my mind. I got so much on my mind, Queen. Thank you for the help. See, she assistant ain't even on camera with me. I love it. But yeah, what did your father teach you about how to become a boy to a man? And so we had this amazing show. Again, we rock every Saturday morning. We've been rocking for 6 years. And for those who know and for those who are regulars, I always have a woman co-host. And that's just to always ensure that no matter what topic we're discussing, we do hard conversations on race, sex, and culture. And so that's just to ensure that we always have that balance on the show. And so while obviously yesterday's show was male focused, I reached out to Jediah. We had connected just recently, and I was like, Queen, you've always been dynamic, and I just wanted to add her to the cadre, and she held it down yesterday. But I will tell y'all, the main reason we're here today with a pop-up show for you guys is because there was a bunch of callers, and there were a lot of comments in via text, via social media that we never got to. And so the Queen was on me. She was like, there's a lot of people that was needing answers from yesterday's show. We were fortunate enough to have on Brother Pianki Nefakara out of St. Louis, basically an elder that really just held down the show and basically gave us marching orders basically for what he does with his family. And I think we heard some things, I think Jediah would agree. We heard some things that could benefit all of us. But in the process of doing that show, we didn't get to all of your comments. So this is basically a tribute to the Queen, ensuring that we take care of you, the listeners, and all of her followers that joined us, because we were fortunate enough, as I said, I'm glad to have added you on as a Queens of Intellect. So thank you, Queen. If you're talking, I can't hear you right now. I don't know what's going on. Did you mute yourself?
No worries. Yeah,
okay, there we go. So with that said, I want to say thank you for becoming one of our Queens of Intellect. And thank you for doing today, as I was letting everyone listening know that we're here because of you. We wanted to make sure we took care of the listeners, because even after the show, as much as you loved it, you was like, we miss some people. I said, all right, we're going to do a pop-up show to make sure that the people that need to be served, to serve. But it's just like a queen to make sure that the flock is taken care of. So I appreciate you for even pushing me to do this pop-up show. Thank you, Queen.
Absolutely. As I've already told you, big ups and much appreciation for you considering your girl to add to the Queens of Intellect. Okay.
Absolutely. I love it. Definitely.
I've always loved your work and followed your work even when I couldn't get on. And so, but moving into like yesterday's dialogue and the great discussions that we had, we indeed had like a couple of inboxes. I had a few text messages, as well as people that left comments when I put the post out there. And I just wanted to be able to share like some of the feedback that we did get, so pretty much like this is like what I'm gonna call the run it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like it. I'm gonna steal that name going forward. Anytime we do a pop-up show, to run it back.
Okay. So for the people,
I'm gonna call it the run it black. That's how I'm gonna say it.
Okay. I like
that. We're gonna run it black.
with it. Okay.
There it is. We're gonna run it black. I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So we're gonna get into the comments and stuff that didn't make it to the air yesterday.
Yeah.
So that's what today is, and we're gonna get it in like I posted. Okay, we ain't gonna be long. Okay, but we're gonna hit strong. Okay.
I like it. But let me shout out. Let me real quick just to let if somebody's just not seeing us and they didn't catch yesterday's show. Let me just shout out even our guests real quick because I just want to appreciate them again. Again, Brother Pianki laid it down yesterday, but I wanted to, the callers that did get in. Eric Pratt. I thought it was Radio Gold, and I told you every time we get together, Jediah, it's Radio Gold. The brother was able to basically lay out what he learned from his father, and let you know this. He was able to thank his father on air, which we were acknowledging yesterday, but come to find out his father was listening. So, we didn't know. Remember, he said he had sent it out for his father to listen, but I found out directly that his father actually got to hear him say, hey, here's the wisdom I learned from my father. Thank you.
Yeah.
His dad, his actual dad.
Yes, that's what's up.
Yep. And then a couple other callers, Marcel Richardson, that was the young man. I think I lost you again. That was the Marcel Richardson. That was the young man that actually said, I didn't have a father figure. And now he's trying to figure it out with his one son and two daughters. And he did have that one man come in his life. So I was thankful that he came on to give a different perspective of not having that. Matter of fact, I think it's a perfect segue into maybe some of the comments, because I think you had some people in the comments saying, hey, I didn't have this guidance. So he called in saying the same thing. So that'll be a perfect segue to go into some of the comments.
Yeah, indeed. You hear me over here hitting this mic button because my husband and they're in there playing chess. I said, look here, y'all in the mic.
I can dig it. Okay. Why they gotta be loud to play chess? You ain't gotta be loud. They talking shit and playing chess. Okay, I got it. Chess, nigga.
Yeah.
I don't even see that. I had to do it.
Okay. So let's get into this work. I want to share. I won't drop the names because they didn't necessarily say, okay, put their names in. But if you on here and I read your comment, feel free to chime in. This is also like the safe space and the share space. If you want to give feedback and you couldn't get through the call yesterday, or you didn't drop your comment, but you on today, if y'all want to add to it, we're here for it. Okay, but again, what I said, we ain't gonna be long, but we're gonna hit strong.
The link in the comments, I believe. I hope it's showing up correctly. Y'all should be able to add on if you need to. But go ahead, Queen.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll start out. Let me see. Hold on. And y'all bear with me because I'm new to this side, so I'll be trying to figure this out too.
Now we gonna get take your time, Queen. Yeah. I'm still new to this video version. I've been doing the audio for years. Now I gotta show my face and cut my hair before I get on the show. I'll be doing the show.
You got a new hairstyle and stuff.
Yeah, I can dig it. I do my show butt naked on Saturday sometime. I'm joking.
Easy now.
I'm joking.
All right. So we're gonna get into this first comment that was provided by I'll refer to the initials of AH. This is one of my boys out of Tallahassee. All right. So in addressing the question, he says so many things related to his father teaching him. But the phrase that he used to repeat, the phrase that he used to repeat a lot was do what you need to do. He taught a rather simple yet powerful practice of always handling your business and responsibilities first before anything for fun or pleasure. It sounds simple, and it is, but seeing him live it as an example was what was invaluable. Doesn't matter how tired you get, how much you feel you need a break. As men, we push ourselves and get it done before we chill. Watching him do it cultivated it as a way of life for me. The people closest to me usually considered me the hardest working person they've known. Hard work, perseverance, patience, and persistence are indelible qualities of manhood, and you have to see it to learn it. Forever grateful for my pops, greatest man I know.
I love it. That simple thing, and just for again anybody that may be listening. So yesterday's show, to a degree, was to get seeds that maybe you can use in your life. And while as simple as that sounds, that is the most important. One of the most important aspects of manhood is in the sense of if you're going to provide, as you said yesterday, protection and provision, then you can only trust a man who's always going to do what he needs to do first before pleasure. And that is a big risk that happens that I see it. I do an after school program. And so without that type of simple edit, do what you need to do, meaning you do that first. You do that over priority. It helps you when disasters come because you've been prepared. Sometimes you put something off or you put the pleasure in front of what you need to do. And when disasters come, you can't handle it. And you think to yourself, had I done this, I would have been okay. And so I can respect, and he's absolutely right. Basically, work ethic is not automatic. You have to teach it. And that's one of the best ways to teach it. So I absolutely agree and appreciate that comment.
And it also plays into yesterday too, that what several of the brothers said, and it was also something that I played into as well, about the men being present to be the example.
Right.
You know, absolutely. Like something like this, like he said, the most valuable thing was to experience that of his father. It's not necessarily like all these words. You know what I mean? Yeah, like I said what I said, and now watch me demonstrate this. Versus, you know, a lot of us was raised with this whole "do as I say, not as I do." You know.
That's real.
We know that's kind of oxymoronic, you know what I'm saying?
Now, my mama
always.
I always tell people, though, sometimes my mama actually could pull that out because she had me so scared I would just do what she said.
Right, we all did. Okay. I just want to post up and be
every time I did it work.
Yeah. Look, in these morning posts in the Black Roy, I mean, it's like, how many of y'all grew up where a side was talking back? Okay, you better not.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, when she said "do as I say, not as I do," you better follow suit. Yep. Okay. So yeah,
every now and then it's effective, but you're right. Nothing beats action, especially for a boy to a man. Boy to a man, action always speaks louder than words. Absolutely.
Yeah. So and then that's gonna play up into. So this one was like there were several that will come in like this one. So we can vibe on this one as well. Let me get to it on yesterday's post. Where did you go? Yep. Okay. I had one brother, PW up out of Dallas, Texas. He said, "Be there, be present, be consistent, be." I learned all this because he wasn't any of these things to me.
I understand that.
It's like the lessons of the absent father, you know, and the things that you did not like, you know, you were kind of committed to become like you. It's like you opted into becoming the example of what was not there.
Yeah, I love this. Here's a reality, unfortunately, though. Because there's a lot of young men in our generation that experience what he just said, right? Because he wasn't there, right? Right. And so you go through a period because you're trying to find yourself. You don't necessarily have that example at home. A lot of times you'll look to your peers, or maybe if you're fortunate, there's another man. Like for me, it was my grandfather in my early years. And so if you're fortunate, you maybe get it from somewhere else. But the reality for a lot of young men specifically who don't get that, their first response is to do almost exactly like he said. I'm going to be these things because my father wasn't. And so every now and you meet these amazing fathers who absolutely do just as this comment said. The unfortunate reality is, even with you hating it, the psychology sometimes is you actually sometimes fall into what you don't want to be. That happens more than not. So I always applaud brothers like who made this comment, who actually pull off being the opposite of what they never received. And I'm just pointing out the psychology of how unfortunate when a father is not there, more boys will say what he said, but will end up being more like their father and repeat the cycle than the ones that are exceptions like this man. And I love them because some of those men who never had the example, they end up being the best fathers you will ever see because they're so dedicated to being the opposite of what their father was. And I'm just highlighting this because I know if there are young men who hear this, or even young men in their 20s or 30s with children, hopefully it's a reminder. You said you was going to do the opposite, and they might now actually be failing maybe their seed right now because they end up being like their absent father, even though they went through a young teenage period where they said, "I'll never be like my father," and more young men follow in the footsteps of their absent father than actually do the opposite, even though at one time it crosses their mind and they say, I'm never going to do that with my children. People follow suit way more than they don't. I wanted to highlight that psychology just to, you know what I mean? Like put it in somebody's mind that listens to this to say, remember, you said you was going to do better.
Yeah, and I think, and when you're looking at the psychology of it, oftentimes that happens because they're stuck in their hurt.
Yes.
And what happens is when you're stuck in that hurt, and you begin to hate, it can consume you, and then you become exactly what you don't like.
Exactly.
Before you know it, and in fact, even worse.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you exceeded your daddy. He had 6 kids. You got 10. You know what I'm saying? You didn't like this about your mother. You know what I'm saying? And now you with the same type of man. You know, and so that's like the psychology of it. Like we have to be careful of not sacrificing the healing for the hurt.
Yep. And one reason that we do that, because again, like I said, because this mental dialogue, so we get into the psychology, right? Another reason that we do this, and this is because a lot of people do that with a lot of things, right? Whoever may hurt you, right? But obviously we're talking about fathers. But or just to give people a reason behind it, which may help them with it, is what happens is whatever was even in your trauma, whatever bonded you or attached you, it could just be the desire. Maybe your dad was in and out a little bit, around some, he wasn't completely absent. So what happens is, as a child, you're chasing it so bad that it don't even take a lot for them to make you feel good, if that makes sense, because you're chasing it so bad. Well, unfortunately, even bad treatment, in other words, you wasn't raised, they wasn't there to really raise you like they supposed to, but they was around. Well, what happens is you desire that person, your father in your life, so bad that even the bad treatment becomes familiar to you, and you actually come to know that as some type of love. Yeah. So as an adult, you will often repeat the cycle and are more comfortable with that experience because that's what you grew up with. So that's why you repeat the cycle. You have your child and you only know how to love in moments because your daddy only loved you in moments. Yeah. So people repeat the cycle because that's what they're familiar with. And because they didn't have, in a sense, the appropriate or the right type of love, a lot of times they don't know what to do with it. And then when it's time for you to give it to your seed, you don't know how to give it. So you have to get that help that our community always is talking about. You know, a lot of times you have to go to a professional to understand what we're talking about. Because you can say you shouldn't, you got to let go of that hurt. That makes sense, but it ain't that easy. A lot of times our family and friends can't just simply say, let go of the hurt. And that's all it takes. You got to go get therapy to literally be better for your children. Your children deserve that. You see this a lot on the Black Grown and Married side. I mean, a lot of us were not giving the model of what marriage is, or how to even conduct ourselves in healthy relationships. You know what I'm saying? So we're out here figuring it out. Right. But sadly enough, it's also how it also becomes the demise of our relationships, because most of us are out here trying to figure it out. But going into those laws of attractions, I think like those are also like it plays into the absence, the lessons of the absent father. It's like there's still lessons even in that. Yeah. And I think sometimes we have to, we should consider like the whole picture. Sometimes you might want to be grateful, because had he been around, the experiences that you had could have been worse. And that's with any absent parent. You know what I'm saying? Especially if the dad, let's say, was a crackhead, okay? And everything coming up out the house, well, he done left the pipe around and now you done got a hold to it. I mean, like there's so many dynamics. It's definitely dynamic. Yeah, because in most cases, it's not. In the most, I must guesstimate. In most cases, it's usually not a completely absent parent, right? But the absence, it usually comes from their inability to be there for you like they need to, because they're lacking in something. So you're right. Yeah. In a situation where somebody's lacking, basically, if we were to be honest, probably shouldn't be a parent right now. Having that person around actually could, like you said, could be worse. And like I said, as an adult, you have to process that instead of just saying my dad was a crackhead, or my, whatever, or my dad was only this. Focus on him. You still are responsible for how you carry on. And if you're going to have seeds one day, holding on to the hurt of what your father wasn't is not going
Yeah.
to serve you to be the father you need to be for your sons.
Yeah, and even in personal experience, that's how me and my dad are so close right now.
Okay.
You know, because I remember the in and out moments, and I gravitated toward the things that I loved about my father. You know what I'm saying? Versus on him. You know, and then when I got to my 20 something, like it's us now. You know, and we had straight talk conversations. I even questioned about him being in and out and us having to just do these weekends or you know, like those things. And when I was saying the other day, my dad taught me also a little bit about pride. Sometimes we be holding it till we be dead wrong in it. You know what I'm saying? But it was a learned behavior that I had to recognize and acknowledge. But like my mother and father had certain agreements. And even though I didn't like it, he was like, that doesn't change how I felt what needed to be done. And a lot of times we ask our parents these kind of questions, and when they don't give us the answers that we want, they wrong and you mad, how dare you? My daddy was straight, no chasers. He told me I understand all that. I'm like, I just feel like I didn't have to go through some of the things I had to go through. She was grown, we were kids. And he was just like, I understand that. But your mother, and so many were in the hood version, he said my mother was a priority. The grown people made decisions. That was their relationship. And this is it, you know. And rather than getting upset with my father, I loved him even more for his honesty, you know, because he could have gave me some bells and whistles, you know. And we've been like rocking ever since. You know,
that's I told you that yesterday. I mentioned it yesterday. Very similar for me. And for me, it was, you know, yours wasn't until your 20s. Mine was probably about the 8th, 9th grade, which I still say to this day for young men, again, to you know, in a sense, if we're honest about today, you know, yesterday's shows, we're talking about boys to men, right? So I feel like I am somewhat of a living example of that. If the initial relationship between a man and a woman starts off rocky as far as being there, ideally we want to be grown and married, like your hashtag says, right? Or my hashtag I love to use is healthy marriage before children. So ideally, that's what we still should be striving for. But the realities are that's not always the case. And so in the situations where maybe they're starting out to, you know, maybe not together or maybe separated early on. And so I always say it is vital that men are in their child's life by the time they start high school. And I'm a living example of that, because that's, you know, that teenage years is when naturally we start feeling ourselves a little bit, boys even more so than girls, right? And so and so the reality in that moment at that age, again, while I'd much rather my father have been in my life all my years, right? And he was in and out up until that point. It's so critical at that age, because at that age, without a man, because you know, boys don't become men on their own. That's something that unfortunately a lot of people are grown but haven't become men yet, because you don't come that on your own. Well, I want to highlight at that age, that's when you're most influenced by your peers. So if you don't have a man correcting some of that at that point, it's very likely that your teenage boy is going to get in the streets or follow wherever you live at, going to follow the peer group that's just a little older than them. That happens anyway. But without any older man correcting any of that BS you're learning from your peers, you're going to live out you typically are going to live out an extended adolescent, which I still did some of that. I admit that, or whatever. But it ended up, I didn't get in the streets thanks to my dad always making me work, you know, giving me enough money to where I didn't get turned on by that little quick money in the street, because I had long-term goals, and to a degree with that guidance. My dad was an every weekend dad, which is props to the every other, you know, versus the every other weekend dad. I was able to go every weekend, luckily, you know what I mean? And so it made a huge difference. And I just still say, the reason I know I'm belaboring this, but I just like to highlight for any young man out here listening that has children, if you have a fractured relationship, make it somehow figure out how to prioritize and figure out how to co-parent if you're in that situation.
Absolutely.
Critically, by the time they get into high school, you gotta be there, because there's still a chance to save them from going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and see that also goes back into when we were talking about family being the first community, extended family being as important. oftentimes even as the first family. You know what I'm saying? Because that's community with that extension. And so even if the biological father is not there, there are men in this child's life that need to be present. Like if you cool with the mama, you the uncle, you the cousin, like everybody, it takes that village to help them develop as men, you know. And something I didn't get to point out yesterday that I do want to point out today is also, I think a lot of times, and this is also speaking from a personal perspective, coming from being a middle class family, you know, people think because a child comes from a 2-parent home, he don't need the men around him. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, you got all these programs for the boys who, you know, the single parent home and all of these kind of things. And, you know, but I've experienced the kids from the 2-parent home, you know, I mean, we need it too. You know, I've had my son.
So hold on, let me understand. I want to understand this real quick. So you're saying based on the way, baby, how you was raised, the programs are not available to the. See, I'm not used to that. I'm used to just stuff for boys, just be for boys, whether you single or 2-parent. I'm not familiar with that being the situation.
Yeah, a lot of the programs available today, not as I grew up.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking. This is news to me. That's why I'm asking. Like that's you see, I'm frowning on my face. I'm like, what? It's only for single parent?
Yeah, a lot of the programming today is, you know, gearing up, you know, to help like boys and single parent. I mean, you know, like you got the Steve Harvey Boys Camp. You got
it's only for single parents. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I didn't know. Yeah. See, that's new. Yeah, like you said back in the day, they wasn't like that, so I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's quality. They definitely need it, you know.
Yeah, no doubt. I didn't realize it was limited like that because manhood, like we talked about yesterday. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm just tripping because I didn't even know that people were doing that. So that's just on my mind because it makes no sense when we always talk about the village. So why would you dare? Plus, if the 2-parent kid homes are right, that's more examples for the boys, supposedly.
Right.
I don't understand why people would. That's weird to me. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead with your story, but I didn't know people were moving like that.
But there are also experiences from, you know what I'm saying, from like people we cool with, you know, where I have reached out to certain brothers like, hey, I need y'all to kind of grab him my side as dad, because that's different. That's a different dynamic. And, you know, he needs this. I'm telling y'all, you know, because we wind up living, we kind of like living in a good neighborhood in the hood. You know what I'm saying? We hit all the major freeways.
You're on the good end of the hood.
Right. You know what I'm saying? I'm literally like the good end in the hood. Like it's around me and I'm right here. Okay. You know, and so, we, unlike when I used to live in Florida, we don't have the same community concept, you know, like we live next to. So everybody's so scattered out as far as people that we're close to. Okay. So they're going to have more of that peer influence that you was just talking about, right? So just imagine you like one in, you know, one in 10. You know, you the one you come from peace and blessings. You know, what's up? You know what I'm saying, brother? You know what I'm saying? Versus my nigga. You know, and then, but this is your dynamic. You're in school, this is in your neighborhood. And so they're different. You know what I'm saying? Those influences are there. Right. And there is no rites of passage. You know what I'm saying? On that side, you know, for that same thing that we experience when we live there. Right. And so reaching out to the brothers, and so they live out. It's kind of like the responses that I would get would be, well, you know, I don't want to step on no toes, sister. You know, you got to do it in the house. And, you know, and I'm like, what? But ain't we all cool? Like, you can run it by. You know what I'm saying?
You know, that's the unfortunate aspect of how, to a degree, we've bought into American individualism, even within our own or whatever, because I don't know the names of my neighbors and I live in an apartment. Yeah. You know, when we were young, that would never be the case. You would know everybody in the apartments.
I know everybody on my block. I know the people on my block.
See, you're doing good. So you still holding on to it. And I respect that. But I'm just admitting that, unfortunately, the reason you're getting those responses is because, and it's cyclical. It's a couple things, not to get too deep into it, but some of it has been the in a sense, the number of children being born out of wedlock has added to that becoming normal, because a young mother without a village is going to be more protective of her child than when she raises in a village that shows her we got you too. And so, now we're 40, 50, 60 years in, a lot of younger mothers being so protective that now the thought is, I can't assist you. And so unfortunately, you're getting people responding to you because we have to admit the effects of long-term cycles, lead to a culture where we just say it takes a village. We just say it now. There's no action in it because how many of us even came from that? I'm fortunate enough growing up in a small town in the South to have come from some of that. But my reality is I could go back to that town and it's not what it used to be. And so that comes from, like, to let's be honest, historically, my mother had me as a teenage mother, one of the first in my town, but that used to be the exception. So it was easy to grab that mother up and everybody would keep me, you know what I mean? Because the reason it was easy is because even though everybody was working, there would be a lot of mothers still at home that could look out for the rest of y'all.
Yeah.
So you didn't go to pay for daycare. You just went over to Grandma Burnt house or, Miss Ella house, who was at home anytime, all the time anyway, because you trusted putting your child in the home of a married woman that keeps other kids. Today, what does that look like for a single mother? She might be here in Atlanta. She hoping to find one other single girl that they tight enough that when I go out, girl, you keep the children. When I go out, ain't no families they can put their children with. So now we've gotten used to just doing it ourselves. And that's why you get even men responded like, oh, I'm scared to step on toes, because that's no longer the norm. And that's the cycle of having more and more of us be born outside of wedlock. That's a real issue, even though people don't like people have a bad name with marriage. It plays a role in how good your village can be.
Right on. And I agree. I think, and so that's the thing. I think it's like needs to become like the charge for us collectively is getting back to that village concept and more than just a word. Like I shared yesterday, I'm 46 now. I remember growing up on the street with my great grandmother, which is my grandfather's mother, who was my example when it came to manhood, that I grew up with, that was always there. And just for the disclaimer, my father was in and out all my life. So it wasn't like I didn't have him until I got to 20. It was like I got real at 20. Okay.
Right, yeah.
But growing up, my grandfather and his wife lived with his mother, right? And they took care of her. And then they had their house built on the street over. Okay. And on this block, everybody was your cousin or your auntie, because the elders were like your aunties and uncles. Okay. Or mama so-and-so. Right. And if you were not blood related, you were best friends or somebody on that block.
And y'all probably call each other cousins, even though you weren't blood related.
Right. Because right. So the town I grew up in was called Joppy. Joppy is a Freeman town. The last remaining also in Dallas, might I add, okay?
Oh, dope.
And this is what it looked like before crack, okay? It was, everybody knew it as one way in and one way out. These Freemen, they created this neighborhood to protect themselves and to have their own after slavery, And so to have, like, growing up in that and learning this later, it made all the sense of why people were so close-knit and, And so, I know what it was like. My great-grandmother's, her brothers, like, they used to come sit on the porch. We used to go to sleep with the window up and a stick in it, okay? And I didn't even realize, like, I was really over there most of the weekend. I feel like, when she died, I feel like I was over there every day. I couldn't believe, And you don't have that anymore. We don't.
Let me talk about some of why we don't, and it ties in to a lot of what Brother Pianki was talking about yesterday. Yeah. So remember I told you he had called into the show a few weeks ago when we were doing the show about the top 3 priorities for the African American community, and he called in and said something that I think is wonderful. And I think if a lot of us would think about this and commit to this, it can make a huge difference. And it was one of the priorities he said we should have as a community, but it's from an individual perspective, is to become a responsible grandparent. To become a responsible grandparent. Now I want to tie it into what you were just talking about. So what happened was, when the culture was agricultural country, when the country was mostly agriculture, now we're in a marketplace culture. So what happened was, you had this idea of when it was agriculture, the United States was basically, and most of the world has been this way, it was have and have nots. There was really such a thing as a middle class. So what happened is, as an agricultural culture, the key to everything was land, right? So because that was the key to everything, so when you're in the agriculture culture, then when you're raising children, the key to you having something versus nothing is you would get a plot of land, everybody would build on the same land, And then the key for you is you inherit the land from the patriarch and the matriarch, right? That typically
My
is going,
grandfather's house is still
yeah,
intact to this day,
yeah,
and my mama is now in it.
right. So typically that hierarchy is going to the eldest child outside of the eldest child doing something to get out of favor. So because those things mattered when we were agricultural, so what happened was you also would have used your family. We talked about this on the show yesterday to vet who you were going to end up being with, who you were going to marry, because they wasn't. If you wasn't getting married, your inheritance wasn't going to be the main land. You might get a little something, but it's going to the eldest who was married to keep this land in our family. So, so I'm bringing all this together to say, just kind of talk about how the village, what played a role and why the village existed. And I think by dialogue, it can help people understand how, if you choose to, you can break the cycle and return your family to this. Because the key to this is the concept of inheritance, which is lost on us today. And the reason it's lost on us is because, see, once you go from an agricultural market to a marketplace, see, the market now is you get your skills and you take your market out into the world, and you can have things without having to rely on your parents to inherit their land. So that's where you start losing the concept. It's not just it's throughout America, not just in Black communities. So that's when you lose the concept of, like, well, I can just marry whoever I like. You couldn't just marry whoever you like if you was dependent on, before I have to go out and live in the world hard on my own. I get taught how to farm because this is our land, and I got to make sure my parents approve this woman, or I got to make sure my parents approve this man. So it went both ways, because you had to stay in good graces to inherit something, or the world was going to be hard. So I'm just pointing out that even the way our economy changed has led to us getting away from that. But now that we put this in perspective, nobody argues that we should own land. So that's something that we say. But because we're not connected to the old agricultural economy, we don't understand what all goes with it. That's why grown and married, healthy marriage before children becomes a very important aspect, and why it becomes what Brother Pianki said yesterday. The biggest thing that went as far as how to grow a boy to a man is to understand intergenerational wealth, which is access to you, me, him being raised by grandparents. So while we're so worried about absentee fathers as a culture, basically what Brother Pianki was saying, we're missing the boat completely, because it ain't just the father. He said the father don't know enough. You gotta have the grandfather. So it really shows us how we really are hurting more than we even realize. So if your goal becomes to become a responsible grandfather, and that's not what your family makeup is, if you can commit to that, then you're gonna have to make decisions to say, I want to be around to raise my grandchildren. That changes how you navigate the world completely.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's the point right there. How many people have never heard what I just said? But if you think about what I just said, how could it serve any individual, especially a man, especially a boy, who takes that on? If we now, thanks to Brother Pianki throwing it out on the show, again, this is how seeds work. If we start committing to the concept of being a responsible grandparent, because when you think about what that includes, that's not just become a grandparent by nature. The responsible grandparent is, I got to make moves that ensure my inheritance goes beyond my inheritance. Because now you got to think about inheritance. Like now, you think about it. You're just like, I hope I leave my child something. Maybe I will. Maybe I'll get a good life insurance, because that ain't thinking about being a responsible grandparent though. Responsible grandparent makes you think further, makes you make different decisions. So I think that's something that can be taken out of yesterday's show to say, when we say how a boy becomes a man, for us as men, we need to show them what that takes. And if we can, be there as grandfathers to help our sons, show them what that looks like. Because like Junkie said, that example is how he became the responsible grandfather he is. That was his example in his life. Hardly any of us have had that example.
Yeah, yeah. But then I think also as women, we need to be making these conscious decisions, like you said, when it comes to our mates. Okay, like we got to quit this falling in love and walk right into it. Okay, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So therefore, that we have, men that will become responsible grandfathers.
Absolutely.
When you're looking at yesterday and today and the single parent pandemic versus back in our grandmama's day, we could talk all the shit about how they put up with it, what they did. You know what I'm saying? But the legacy is solid. Okay. Like that was a village, that was a community. And right now it's like when you look back on it and you hear like how the dads are not there, it's like, well, who are the grandparents? Okay, where's the grandfather? Because we've made decisions in the moment versus in the long term.
Right.
And even when you start looking at the African worldview and arranged marriages, when the grandparents, first of all, when a child arrives, culturally speaking,
right,
that child is greeted first by the grandparents.
Exactly.
When they come between them legs, it is the grandparent. In fact, before that child gets here, upon conception, during conception, that 9 months, and this is something I learned personally, even.
Okay.
And with my second child, okay, who's named after some elders, okay, they're already telling you their story. Like they're communicating and they're communing with the seed in the womb, okay, before arrival. Like they sit there, like y'all can say what you want to say, okay, but when you know, you know. Exactly. Oh, that child right there. Mm-hmm. Oh, that ain't you craving that food. That's the baby. Like their connection spiritually, okay, is already intact. And when that child's arrived, this is why this is why your parents and your grandparents know your child better than you do. The grandparents know better than you do, right. Because the child is coming from where the grandparent is about to return.
Wow.
Okay. So their language is going to be close. It's going to understand. You know what I'm saying? The elders are
Right. That makes sense.
Coming from.
Wow. It makes sense.
You understand? And that's something that I learned from the Dagara people from Dogon, West Africa. They dope in the game. I'll tell you something. They dope. As far as having a blueprint out here for us to play catch up with.
Right.
And so when she's like, that change the child diaper. I just changed her diaper. She don't shut up and go get that diaper. And lo and behold, she wet. Okay. Even with my grandchild right now, it's like, get up. Okay, she'll lay. Get up. I ain't got no baby talk. You know what I'm saying? Right. And it becomes a complimentary language between the elders and the babies. So we have to begin to contemplate and create space for these things. Like our little in the meantime is cute. And this is why arranged marriages worked at one time. You might have couldn't stand his ass at first. Okay, because and he ain't cute and he get on my nerves. Even when my sons are dating now, I'm like, boy, that one right there, she is. Because we're not looking at, we know who you are and who you about to become.
Absolutely.
You understand?
Here's the thing is, let's be like just to even put this out there and get, like say and what happens is if people are listening to us, they might hear a certain word. And I always like to, for people, if you're first time listening to us on Mental Dialogue, that basically we're living in a world now where we throw the whole baby out with the bathwater. And so like, for example, the term arrange, right? Like it ain't that they used to work. 60% of the world still uses it. I don't know if you know that, but 60% of the world still uses it.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that arranged marriages in itself is the facade, because people gonna hear that word arrange and get triggered. I'm saying stay away from the trigger. What Jediah is pulling out is aspects of what works with them. Again, I'm not, we're not gonna magically turn in America and start doing arrange, right? But the aspect of the family being involved, because as you just said,
yes, that's it.
And who you can be with, who's better for you than you understand. And like I said, when there was even in America, when we were in an agriculture system, you did have to stay in your family graces and pick somebody that they're willing to, let you get that land with. Because there were families that even in America, even though it wasn't arranged marriage, they might say, if you marry that girl, we're not giving you this land. Like it literally was that simple. So we didn't do arranged marriages, but you had to make sure you got full approval of your family of who you were marrying, man or woman. Based on who's keeping the little bit of land we done got this product, because we ain't giving it up because your ass, we give it to you and you don't know what to do with the damn land. You gonna bring the legacy because we see you ain't got no sense.
And my daughter is not my daughter's not going with the man that ain't got nothing to bring to the table. See, it's another word for that. They used to call it dowries, but we don't want to trigger nobody.
Right.
Okay. You know,
Exactly.
you had to
Exactly.
bring something to the table. And as a mother raising sons, okay, I feel the same way with mine. You know what I'm saying? Let me tell you something. You know how much work I done put into this.
Exactly.
You know, now they wind up doing what they gonna do, a given. But this is what have like relationships were much better. You know what I'm saying? If there was that collective effort and bringing them in, but the families are so broken, and this is what we have to get back to. And this is why that platform for BGM is so important and passionate for me. Is like because we're reestablishing like those communities.
Absolutely. And
You
so
know,
I
we
hope
got
y'all
caught up
add,
in this Western world paradigm,
right.
and
Because
which
I
is
know
what
you're
we
doing
don't
it. I
see it.
know you're doing that. And I hope you add that concept of everybody that learns from you and grown in marriage. I think that some words, we know words are powerful, right? And like I said, you'll hear me talk about this from now on. I got this from Brother Bianca. I know where I got it from. But I hope that you add to the way y'all teach in your groups that everybody goal that comes in there and ready to learn from y'all should be to become responsible grandparents.
Grandparents. I
There's a
love
lot
that.
that goes with
Absolutely
that.
love that.
You see what I'm saying? Y'all
Yeah.
already teaching good stuff, but
Mhm.
that term gonna add to what you're teaching. It has
Yeah.
to, because it makes you consider. You see, like I get chill bumps just thinking about knowing what you already been doing with groups and helping people stay married, help people get back to that. But if we add this part, y'all gonna be better. Y'all gonna be stronger, because now you make it more than about me. It's more than about me and you. We now making this commitment to not just our babies who we naturally gonna have love for, but what decisions can we make to ensure we help their children?
Yeah.
That changes how you move going forward.
Right. When I consider, like, you know, speaking with elder couples, like couples that's been together like 40 plus years. You know what I'm saying? Hell, 25 and they 25 plus. When I'm speaking to them and vibing with them and everything, and I'm going on 20 myself, like I understand the dynamic. Like, see, they have those type of goals at the end of the wheel. You know what I'm saying? Like they're looking at, look, I mean, even in my own space, I be candid in my own space. When we've had our little moments, one of the things, like, we stayed together because it was like, it ain't just about us.
Exactly.
Right?
That's what's gonna keep you together.
Ain't right now. However, okay, these kids are going to need ... Okay, my
we got somebody
grandfather.
want to jump in on here with us, just I'm gonna let them in. We got about 13 minutes. We're gonna stay on this thing for 13 more minutes. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but let's go ahead and let somebody get in here with us. Hey, Papa Q, if you come off the mute, man, we let you. I'm assuming Papa Q got
what up, Sir Isaac?
Oh, you know who this is?
Oh yeah. I'm almost certain I know who that is. Whatever.
Okay,
Sir Isaac, you on the live? Maybe unmute that
okay,
John. There you go.
Hey, how you doing, King? Thanks for coming on with us, man. We got about 12 more minutes.
I'm just trying to enjoy the show. I'm just gonna listen in.
Okay, no problem. Keep enjoying, brother. I just wanted to check. Make sure you didn't want to get on here with us.
Thank you, Sir Isaac.
All right, go ahead. Jedi, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. I wanted to make sure we got them in if they wanted to.
Yeah. No worries. But yeah, hell, I lost where I was at.
Well, you were just talking
about the elder couples, and like, you know, in my personal experience, like considering like the whole picture, considering the impact we've had on a collective, it was like we can't just let this emotion here become the end all, you know. And when I sit down with elders who've been together for a minute, it's like that becomes even more the motivation, because you would never know them experiences from their 20s and 30s, even their 40s and 50s. You know what I'm saying? That makes it all worth it. And they're sitting in that very seat being responsible grandparents. Absolutely. And I hadn't even thought about it like that until that brother, you know, put it out there exactly like that.
Yeah,
you know?
I've never heard that term, like, say that should be a goal of all of ours. But I've always thought about even the grandparents that did do the 30 and 40 years. And, you know, like me, we know when you're young and see your grandparents, you just, you know, you love them and you're happy to see them together. If you're, you know, for those that have been fortunate to see that or whatever. Yeah. But if you really dig into what they've been through, then that's a whole different world or whatever. Because what happens is, here's something again about being a responsible grandparent, because here's something else. Individually, we don't realize it sometimes because while we're vibrant and we're young and we're trying to hustle and make our money and get all this kind of stuff, and we have goals of how much we want to have and, you know, that kind of thing. And most people think, I would love to leave something to my children. It just may not work out that way or whatever. But the thing that ultimately people lose sight of, because of how we've lost sight of the village because of the way we have, is humans do not want to die alone. And the way we're moving without the sense of marriage, that's where a lot of our generation is headed. And so when you see those grandparents who look happy after 30, 40 years or whatever they are, and they don't necessarily share all the bad of the early years, well, what happens is they've come to realize that us sticking it out, we have come to serve each other and we love each other, because these years right here will be hard as hell if I didn't have you. I didn't have you. So that's another concept that we don't think about, because we're young and don't think about what living, because we're humans by nature, we are communal.
Yeah.
So to end up your last years on your own is very difficult. And because we don't have that as a priority, we're still selfishly trying to get together because we don't have a legacy-minded concept of who I end up with. We're just trying to, in a sense, be in love. So our dysfunctional is, how do you make me feel? We're caught up in that.
Yeah.
Versus
that feeling.
Versus if I'm trying to choose you for a mate and I got to consider being a responsible grandparent, I also got to figure out, well, do I think Jedi can raise my children? Like, that's like people getting married without thinking about.
Doesn't Jedi even want children?
Right.
A lot of people not even find that out after they.
I'm just pointing out that if you're getting married and want to have a legacy, you're marrying the person you love the most, but hadn't figured out whether this person is a good parent or not. That has to be a priority over how much you feel for this person.
Absolutely.
Because that has to be a priority. Is why else are you getting married if it is not to have children and leave a legacy?
Yeah. And going back to what you just said about, like, we out here nowadays like dying alone. And that's real in like real time. I could name at least 3 people that I know who, the dad that was found dead for weeks.
We are the first generation to experience it due to this cycle.
Yeah.
See, and the reason we're experiencing is because, we were raised, unfortunately, in the romanticized version, the Hollywood movie version. See, humans didn't have movies. All they had was romantic books. So some people get caught up in that. But we're the generation that had the books, the music, and the movies. So we've romanticized marriage. And so when this concept of a boy becoming a man, in a lot of cultures, I'm not a man at 47. I don't have a family and children. Like that was, in a lot of African cultures, this. You're not considered a man until you take on that responsibility. So since because that's what's considered a man, you have to be trained in how to do that.
Right.
It ain't just simply get a wife and have children in those cultures. It's you're not considered a man. So therefore, by nature, as men, we chase whatever manhood looks like. If you grow up in the streets of LA and don't have a father, and a manhood looks like the gangbanger, and that's what a man looks like, that boy will chase that.
Right.
Like, you know what I'm saying? If that's having a brother Bianchi who raised his grandson to be a double major and a full scholarship athlete that I guessed on yesterday's show. If that's his grandson's version of a man, he's gonna try to emulate his grandfather.
Right.
So I'm just kind of pointing out that this cycle has harmed us in more ways than we've ever realized, and more so when I think about I can't let go of responsible grandparent.
Yeah.
Like Brother Bianchi will beat us up by just beat up our culture in the sense of having too many absent fathers. But we focus there, and like I said, we started at the beginning. I'm just reiterating because there's people on now. But
yeah,
you think about that, if we're not raising enough children to have their grandparents be in their lives to raise them, we missed the whole boat.
Yeah. I'm gonna add that, you know what I'm saying, to the BGM group. Like I'm gonna create that discussion space about becoming, like how many of us are really looking forward to being responsible grandparents? Like how many of us even have that as a goal? And it's something for me that I haven't like said out loud, but naturally I want to be a responsible grandparent. But I remember when I became a grandparent, I was like, say it out. Didn't I tell you to wait till I was 55? 10 years? Hold on. You about 10 years early. Okay. I got stuff to do. You know what I'm saying? But I bet you I was her hood doula. I bet you I got her here Okay. You know what I'm saying? And I bet
Right.
she at this house every Sunday and on, days outside of that when I feel like it. Okay.
Yeah, I dig it. I
In the
respect
relationship that we have, you know what I'm saying?
it. Right.
It's
Because
solid.
the responsible grandparent now includes, as much as we, for example, talk about life insurance, right? We play around with that as a culture to a degree. Some of us got enough, some of us got just enough, right? But when you start thinking about being a responsible grandparent, you might have to sacrifice a little more to get a little bigger policy, because now you're gonna be because a responsible grandparent is not just leaving a little something to your kids. You have not been a responsible grandparent if you just leave a little something, or they get, once they bury you, there's a little money left over. That's not a responsible grandparent. That's a whole different mindset.
Yeah.
Because
Mhm.
a responsible grandparent is leaving enough money that you can affect your grandkids' lives, but it also is, I gotta put values in my next level, my next group, so that my grandkids get these same values. When you were listening to how Brother Pianki was talking about that they still vet the girls' boyfriends in their family.
Yeah.
So that value is set to the point where his grandson still has to go through that process. Like, that's a responsible grandparent, that my grandkids are following this process. See, now we're to the point where when we don't think about that, the grandkids just kind of get to fit into the day's time and do what they do. But if you're going to be a responsible grandparent, it includes more finances got to be left down, more value, more lessons got to be passed down. When your next lineage, if you got 3 children and one of them kind of goes astray, then that's discussed. You went astray because we don't want the grandkids to follow them steps. If that's not discussed, the grandkids do whatever they want.
Could you imagine like a circle of men, like a circle of grandfathers?
Oh my God.
Like the
That's
camp.
powerful just thinking about it.
You know what I'm saying? Like the circle of grandfathers. You know what I'm saying? They here for the husbands, okay? The sons, the uncles, the kids, the grandkids. You know what I'm saying? Like,
So
but
what
that's who we
happens
were.
is,
That's who we are. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. So what happens is, us saying it could be the seeds to saying, let's start it. We didn't get it generally as a cook. So we didn't get it.
Yeah.
To turn that around is going to require healthy marriage before children. It's going to
And I
require
think
grown and married. That's what it's going to require to get to
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
And I think we need to be responsible in putting out more images, more positive images of Black
That's
fathers.
why we in media.
We can sit here and you get all of this. They ain't is the black man and the black dad ain't. Hey. What are people who getting it right? You know what I'm saying? That's why I put out images of my husband and my children and my, you know what I'm saying? It's like more of us need to applaud. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Right. That's what we're doing with the show with Mental Dialogue. I just added the segment, that segment that says lessons from Furious Style and Other Great Fathers. That's a that's a new segment on the show going here forward. And so
I'm excited about that. I think it was kind of dope.
Yeah.
You know
So we started it last Saturday. And so every week at 11, we're gonna do it at 11 o'clock. It's the show's from 10 to 12. At 11, we're gonna bring on a father, and people can let people just listen to this. You can recommend fathers that you know that are powerful, and we just want to get in and get a lessons and become these responsible grandfathers that we're talking about, Jediah.
Absolutely. I think that should be the charge. Okay, the charge for the listeners, okay, and the viewers, okay, is to put out more positive images of Black fathers. I don't want to hear nothing about you don't know none because you a lie. Everybody know at least one. Whether
like we said at the beginning of the show, like we're being show, like we're highlighting this issue, but the reality is there are more Black fathers handling their business than are not. So I still want to be clear.
And that's what needs to be revealed. Like that's
the real. Those numbers are real. Now, are they doing it inside the house? That's a whole. That's kind of why we're talking about some. So some of what we want to get to needs to be. We need to get more marriages involved, but it's not to act like most. Because here's the reality. Like, I'm gonna give people perspective on this because people like to assume that there's too many men. So 51% of Black men are not married with no children. So that's half the Black men ain't got no children. 33% of black men are married. 34% of black men are married. So if you take 51 with no children, you know, I know all those 34% ain't got kids per se, but let's just look at the numbers though, just using some rough numbers. 51% plus 34% get us at 85%. So while there are deadbeats out here, that's only 15% of single, you know what I'm saying? Of single men with no kids, and we know a lot of them are handling their business. So what happens is, like we mentioned yesterday, the squeaky wheel gets the noise. So of course, those men who are not handling their business, they've hurt a lot of people. They've hurt not only the women, they've hurt the children. But if you just use the numbers I just broke down, that's not the majority of black men. Now our goal for that 51% is for them to be finding wives, not just having babies, even if they are going to be responsible for their children, and a lot of those men choose to. Let's see if we can start picking a woman that can raise our child versus accidentally or being so in love, then finding out she's not a good mother, or vice versa, then finding out he's not a good father. Let's go through the process of picking somebody you say, oh, she can be
in an intimate relationship with somebody to the point where y'all can plan. When I say plan, I'm not just talking about when the child will arrive. Call down what it is needed in that lineage together. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Being able to have that conversation. Hey, this is what we need. This is what we, you know, and I think this will be good. And then you put that in the ether so that you can literally manifest that into the womb. Okay. Versus just jumping out there and just being like, you know.
No babies before you do what you just said. We are past our time. Let them know how they can stay in contact with you. I'll be doing this. I do this video show on Wednesday nights. Let me highlight it real quick, called Just My 3 Cents. And we just basically are trying to raise the culture. So with that said, let them know how to stay in contact with you. Thank you again, Queen, for becoming a Queen of Intellect member. I think the second half of the show, we just got the rapping, but that's what we do.
That's right. Y'all got to get to the game. So, you got to get to the game. Okay.
It is. Yeah, so let them know how they can stay in contact with you, Queen.
Indeed, y'all can hit me up at Black Grown and Married. It is a private group. It's only for black couples. Okay, both of y'all need to be black. Okay, you know, and it's that's more so of my engaged and married couples. Other than that, y'all can just hit your girl up on social media. Empower You. Period. Oh, you can hit us up. Black Grown and Married. It's open on Instagram. We're open. Facebook, it is a private page. So just roll with that right there for now. And until next time, you know.
Hey, you know how we do.
Black Socrates would say, all we ask.
Wednesday night, Just My 3 Cents. Raise the culture. Make it make sense. Check us out. We gone.